Well, good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing? Good. Hey, we are so glad that you are here. Welcome to part one of Indescribable. I am so excited about this series because for the next 3 weeks, we're going to talk about the fact that God is big and He is indescribable. And even though we know Him, and even though we worship Him, God is bigger than our vocabulary. God is bigger than the wildest imaginations or wildest dreams that we've ever had. God goes way beyond the greatest or grandest thoughts that we've ever had about Him. And the easiest way to see that this is true is by looking up. Now, here in Tampa, we do see some stars in the sky, but not that many, but it's still pretty amazing to look up at the night sky. But have you ever been out in the wilderness, in the middle of Colorado or someplace way away from the city, and it's pitch black at night, and you look up at the night sky, and the stars literally look like diamonds sparkling in the sky, and it's so massive, and you feel as if you're falling up into it. I had an experience like that about 3 years ago in Colorado when I was just completely overwhelmed by the massiveness of this universe that we live in. You see, God goes way beyond that. God is bigger than we think. You see, the very heavens are telling us His story. The heavens simply say to us, God is big. He's really, really, really big. Bigger than we think, and then even bigger than that, and even bigger than that, and even bigger than that. God is huge. God is humongous. God is gigantic. God is ginormous. You fill in the blank, you know? And when we look up, that's what the heavens say to us. The psalmist David spent a lot of time as a shepherd looking at the night sky. Listen to what he wrote about it. He says, "The heavens are telling the glory of God. The skies declare the work of His hands. Day after day they pour forth speech, and night after night they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard." David is saying, when we look up, we realize that we are surrounded by a complex, orderly, beautiful, communicating, overwhelming universe. And all that we know about it is that it happened in one glorious instant, and it's still expanding at the speed of light. And it's doing what God created it to do. This great universe is speaking to us of the splendor and glory of God. The universe is reminding us just how big God really is. Now, as we dig into this series, let me just say this is going to be a little different than anything we've done before in the past 5 years. And I want to let you know from the get-go, just in case you don't know this, I am not a scientist or an astronomer by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I'm borrowing this material from Louis Giglio, who borrowed it from somebody else. But this is something that we need to hear, because as believers, we need to, in a cognitive sort of way, in a cerebral reasoning sort of way, we need to be reminded of just how big God is. And one of the best ways to discover how big He is by looking at the universe around us. One of the big debates or questions among those who study the universe is, are we the only populated planet? Are there other Earths? Are there other people out there? The scientists say that if there aren't other people out there, if there aren't other populated planets, then this is one big wasted universe. Because we don't even know how big it is. We're on this little thing called Earth, and what's the rest of it for? What is this great, big, vast universe all about? You see, when we look up at the stars, to us they kind of almost seem like they're bumping into one another, but they're not. To get a picture of this, scientists make the analogy that the stars in the universe are spaced out so far that it would be like taking 3 tiny peas and strategically placing them in 3 different spots. We'll put one over here. I hope I don't smash it later. And not here in Cross Point Church, but guess where? In Raymond James Stadium. Wow. That's how spread out the stars are in our universe. And so scientists say that if we're the only people here, it's just a big wasted space. If we're the only people in the universe, it's just a little oversized for us. So, could it be that the primary job of the universe is to remind us and to proclaim to us and shout to us and tell us day after day after day that God is huge? Could it be that the universe is God's billboard, and it's right up there over our heads, and every night and every day it is telling us that He is big and we are really small? Those are the 2 things that we're going to talk about this morning, but let's talk about the first one because it's more fun. God is big. The first words in the Bible talk about how big God is, because they say, in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. In other words, He started this whole thing. And then a few verses later, it says, He, referring to God, spoke. So in His creative process, God didn't strain or groan or struggle. He just spoke when He was creating. Wouldn't that be cool to do? You know, lawn mowed, house cleaned, kids disciplined, teenagers disappear from the planet. Woo!